Most of us wouldn't think twice about an itch. A little scratch here, a dry patch there. We shrug it off, apply a bit of lotion, maybe change our soap. It's harmless, right? But what if I told you that for people over 60, certain itches in very specific areas could be the first sign that something far more serious is going on inside? We grow up thinking pain is the main messenger of illness. And yes, pain often does ring the loudest alarm bells. But for many cancers, particularly those that affect older adults, the body doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And those whispers, they can come in the form of persistent, unexplained itching. Now let me be clear, this is not about creating fear. It's about sharpening awareness. Because if there's one truth every doctor and survivor will tell you, it's this: early detection saves lives. So in this video, we're diving deep into 5 unusual but medically documented areas of itch that have been linked to cancer. And more importantly, how to spot the difference between a passing skin irritation and something your body is urgently trying to tell you. Let's begin with the first sign, one that many seniors dismiss as dry skin or poor circulation. Persistent itching on the lower legs. It starts out subtle, maybe a tingling sensation across your shins or calves. You rub a little moisturizer in. No rash, no bug bites, nothing visible, just itch. At first, it's annoying. Then it becomes nightly. The same spot, the same intensity, and nothing works. Sound familiar? This was exactly what happened to George, 75, a retired school teacher. For 6 months, he couldn't shake the sensation on the front of his legs. No matter what he tried, new lotions, fragrance-free soaps, even antihistamines, the itch persisted. His skin looked normal, no redness, no irritation, just the itch. Doctors originally suspected eczema or allergies, but when basic treatments failed, his physician ran a blood panel. And that's when things changed. George's white blood cell count was unusually high. A scan revealed swollen lymph nodes in his chest. The final diagnosis? Hodgkin's lymphoma. George was lucky. His story became part of a growing pattern observed by hematologists. Persistent itching on the lower legs without visible cause often appears months before other symptoms of blood cancers emerged. Why the lower legs? It turns out that in some types of lymphoma, cancerous cells release chemicals that irritate nerve endings in the skin. The immune system, already under attack, becomes overactive in strange ways. That burning, restless sensation isn't from outside, it's coming from within. And what's most alarming? The skin can look totally normal. No rashes, no peeling, no inflammation, just nerves screaming silently underneath. The quiet pattern that matters. Here's how to distinguish a harmless itch from a potential warning sign. Duration. If the itch lasts more than 2 weeks with no clear cause, take notice. No visible change, no rash, no dryness, and yet the discomfort remains. No relief. Creams, soaps, moisturizers don't help at all. Timing. It often worsens at night. Additional symptoms, fatigue, unexplained weight loss, or night sweats may accompany it. I want to stress again, not every itchy leg means cancer, but if it's unrelenting, deep, and paired with other subtle symptoms, it's worth speaking up. Our skin is often the last place we expect cancer to show up, but the nervous system that runs beneath it is tightly connected to everything happening inside. Especially as we age, those nerves can detect distress long before lumps or visible symptoms ever appear. Why older adults must pay closer attention. One of the reasons these signs go unnoticed in seniors is because we've normalized discomfort. We tell ourselves that's just part of aging, but in doing so, we silence one of the most intelligent feedback systems in the human body. Older adults also face a unique challenge: slower immune response and weaker inflammation cues. The body becomes less reactive in traditional ways. You might not feel sharp pain or develop a full-blown rash. Instead, the signal comes quietly, an itch that just won't go away. I once spoke with a nurse practitioner who said something I'll never forget. In younger patients, cancer shouts. In seniors, it whispers. That's why listening, really listening to your body is the ultimate act of protection. What to do if this sounds familiar? If you or someone you love has experienced a mysterious, long-lasting itch, especially on the lower legs, don't dismiss it. Here's what you can do today. 1. Document the symptoms, note the exact area, how long it's lasted, and any patterns. 2. Rule out external causes, new soaps, detergents, medications. 3. Schedule a blood test. A full panel can reveal hidden issues like elevated white blood cells or liver markers. 4. Insist on follow-up. Don't settle for "it's probably nothing" if your instinct says otherwise. Remember, the goal isn't to panic, it's to be proactive. And most importantly, don't self-diagnose, but don't self-dismiss either. Closing this section. In George's case, catching lymphoma early meant starting treatment before the cancer had time to spread. His itch, the one symptom he almost ignored, may have saved his life. Let's learn from that. The next time your body whispers through discomfort, pay attention. Because that small itch might be the loudest cry your immune system can manage. If the lower legs are where some blood cancers first whisper, then the upper back, specifically the space between your shoulder blades, is where one of the most elusive and deadly cancers may quietly speak. And it rarely comes with pain. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt an itch so deep it seems to come from inside your body rather than on the surface? That's exactly what many people describe when dealing with pancreatic cancer, long before they know they have it. The phantom itch that starts in the gut. Pancreatic cancer is notorious for being hard to detect early. By the time symptoms like jaundice or abdominal pain show up, the disease may have already progressed significantly. Researchers and oncologists have noted something fascinating and potentially life-saving. A small percentage of patients experience persistent itching in the upper back before any other symptoms appear. Why would a problem in the pancreas, an organ nestled deep in the abdomen, cause itching on the back? Here's how it works. The pancreas produces enzymes and bile that help break down food. These are transported through tiny ducts into the digestive tract. But when a tumor begins to grow in or near these ducts, it can obstruct the flow of bile. The bile salts, instead of being excreted, accumulate in the bloodstream. This buildup causes inflammation, and one of its strangest effects is irritation of the skin's nerve endings. In many people, this shows up on the back, where dense nerve clusters reside. Linda's story, the back itch that had no surface clue. I'll never forget the story of Linda, a 70-year-old widow who considered herself in decent health. She wasn't on any medications, stayed active, and had no family history of cancer. But one thing drove her crazy, an unexplainable itch between her shoulder blades. It started subtly. She blamed it on a sweater tag. Then a dry winter, she bought a new mattress, changed her detergent. She even tried acupuncture. But the itch didn't stop. Her skin looked completely normal. There was no rash, no redness, not even a dry patch. Still, she woke up every night scratching the same spot, a place she couldn't even see. Eventually, she went to her doctor, not for the itch, but for fatigue. The blood test showed elevated liver enzymes, a red flag. A scan followed. The result? A small pancreatic tumor pressing on her bile duct. The only symptom? That itch. Linda caught it early, she underwent surgery, and her prognosis was good. But she often said one thing: the only reason I'm still here is because I refuse to ignore that nagging feeling. When should you worry about a back itch? To be clear, not every back itch means cancer, but here's when you should pay closer attention. The itch feels deep, like it's coming from under the skin rather than on the surface. It doesn't improve. No relief from creams, antihistamines, or even changes in bedding/clothes. It's oddly specific, always in the same spot, especially between or just below the shoulder blades. No visible cause, skin looks completely fine even though it feels irritated. Accompanied by other signs: fatigue, darker urine, pale stools, loss of appetite. If you're noticing a pattern, especially as someone over 60, it's worth asking your doctor to check liver and pancreatic function. A simple blood test can detect elevated bilirubin or liver enzymes, which are often the first measurable signs that something is wrong. Why we miss this clue? The truth is, most older adults downplay minor discomfort. Back itch? We say it's from sitting too long, or a dry shirt, But in the case of pancreatic cancer, those small signs might be the only opportunity for early diagnosis. And because this cancer is often deadly when found late, catching it at the stage of a single itch might save a life. Not drama, that's data. The emotional cost of dismissing the subtle. There's another piece to this, one that I don't hear enough people talk about. Older adults often hesitate to complain about minor issues. They've lived through real pain, real hardship, so they don't want to seem like they're overreacting. But this cultural stoicism can be dangerous. A back itch may feel like a silly reason to call a doctor, but sometimes that small act of speaking up is exactly what keeps things from getting worse. Let me ask you, if your loved one kept complaining about a weird itch every night, would you urge them to get it checked? If your parent was waking up scratching a spot on their back for weeks, wouldn't you want answers? And don't dismiss yourself either. What action can you take? If this story resonates with you, here's what to do. 1. Track the sensation. Write down when it happens, how often, and what makes it worse or better. 2. Get labs done. Ask your doctor for a liver function panel and pancreatic enzyme test. 3. Consider an ultrasound or CT scan if labs show abnormalities. 4. Speak up. Tell your doctor exactly what you're feeling, especially if it's hard to describe. Use words like deep, phantom, persistent. Even if it turns out to be nothing, you'll gain peace of mind. And if it turns out to be something, you've just given yourself a head start. Closing this section. Pancreatic cancer doesn't usually make noise until it's too late. But sometimes it sends one tiny signal, a whisper between your shoulder blades. Don't let your instincts be silenced. That itch could be the earliest and only message your body sends. Of all the types of itching we experience as we age, an itchy scalp is probably the most common and the most ignored. You run your fingers through your hair and feel that familiar tingle, maybe a little burn. You assume it's just dryness. You try a new shampoo. You scratch, shrug, and move on. But what if I told you that in some cases this everyday annoyance could be the only early warning sign of something much deeper? Especially for older adults, a persistently itchy scalp with no flakes, no visible rash, and no relief from usual treatments could point to two serious possibilities. A blood cancer such as leukemia, or a skin cancer developing silently on the scalp, hidden under the hair. Let's dig deeper into how this works and why it matters. What makes a scalp itch different? First, let's be clear. The scalp is one of the most sensitive and complex regions of skin on the body. It's dense with nerve endings, sweat glands, and hair follicles. That's why a small irritation can feel magnified. But it's also why the scalp can act like a sensor when something internal is off. Cancer itching here often shows up differently than classic dandruff or dryness. It may move around, but it stays on the scalp. It may feel more like a crawling, burning, or tingling sensation. It doesn't respond to dandruff shampoos, medicated creams, or scalp oils. There's often no redness, flaking, or visible irritation. In leukemia, for example, as cancerous white blood cells flood the body, the immune system begins to malfunction. The inflammatory chemicals released can irritate the skin's nerves, and in many cases, that irritation starts in highly sensitive places like the scalp. Henry's story, when an itch beat the diagnosis. Let me introduce you to Henry, age 73, a retired veteran who still wore his military hat almost every day. One summer, he started feeling like his scalp was crawling, just under the surface. He thought it was heat rash. Then, maybe it was his shampoo. He switched brands, ditched the hat, tried every home remedy his wife could find online. Nothing worked. Eventually, his fatigue, not the itch, sent him to the doctor. They ran a routine blood panel and found something concerning: extremely high white blood cell counts. A follow-up test confirmed it: early stage chronic lymphocytic leukemia. The doctor later told him, "You came in for fatigue, but that scalp itch, that was your first clue." Henry's story isn't unique. Many blood cancers irritate the skin not from outside allergens, but from inside inflammation. And the scalp, often overlooked, may be the first responder. But what about skin cancer on the scalp? Let's not forget the scalp is also a common but under-monitored location for skin cancer, especially in areas where the hair has thinned. Why? Because we rarely examine our own heads. Think about it. When's the last time you looked closely at your scalp in bright light, or had someone else do it? Basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma often begin as tiny, itchy patches. They might resemble dry skin, a small bump, or even a pimple that never fully goes away. In seniors, especially those with thinning hair or a history of sun exposure, these spots can hide in plain sight until they grow larger or become dangerous. And yes, melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer, can also begin on the scalp. The pattern to watch for. So what's the difference between a harmless itch and a warning sign? Here are the key red flags. Persistent itching in one or more scalp areas that lasts more than 2-3 weeks. No dandruff, flakes, or redness, but still intensely uncomfortable. Itch that worsens with no visible trigger. Fatigue, unusual bruising, or fever alongside the itch. Possible leukemia indicator. A bump or patch that never fully heals, especially in thinning hair areas. If you experience any of these, it's time to take action. What can you do today? If you or someone you care for is dealing with an unusual scalp itch that doesn't respond to treatment, 1. Ask someone to check your scalp under bright light or ask a hairdresser to take a look. 2. See a dermatologist. A simple exam with magnification can catch skin cancer early. 3. Request a blood panel, especially if other signs like fatigue, infections, or swelling are present. 4. Photograph the area if any visual change appears. A small bump, scab, or discoloration. Most importantly, don't wait. It may feel small, but when it persists, it matters. Breaking the habit of dismissal. Seniors often tell themselves, "I'm just getting older," or "I've always had dry skin." But when the itch defies logic, when your instinct says something is off, that's the time to act. One woman I spoke to recently shared that her husband's leukemia diagnosis began with a small complaint. His scalp itched for weeks, she said. He kept saying, "It's probably nothing," but that nothing was something, and we were lucky to catch it in time. Closing this section. The scalp may be out of sight, but it should never be out of mind. It's not just a place for hair, it's a mirror of your body's internal rhythms. And when it starts whispering through persistent, unexplained discomfort, it's worth listening. Even if it's just an itch. Because sometimes the symptoms we dismiss as insignificant are the exact ones that matter most. When it comes to health warnings, we often think in absolutes. A lump means danger, a rash means allergy, a fever means infection. But the skin, especially the skin over your chest and breast area, doesn't always play by those rules. Sometimes the only warning it gives is a simple, persistent itch. And too often, that's where it ends. Unnoticed, unspoken, and unexamined. But it shouldn't. Because for older adults, both women and men, an itchy patch on or around the breast, the nipple, or just beneath the chest wall may signal a deeply concerning issue, one that can progress rapidly if ignored. Not just skin deep, inflammatory breast cancer and the itch that precedes it. Let's talk about inflammatory breast cancer, a rare but aggressive form of cancer that doesn't always come with a lump. Unlike the typical presentation we see in public health ads, this cancer often begins with warmth in the skin, swelling or tightness, A change in texture, perhaps a little thickening or a dimpling effect, like the skin of an orange. And yes, a persistent, focused itch. This type of cancer blocks lymph vessels in the skin, causing subtle inflammation before any noticeable tumor develops. And that's where the itch comes in, the body's way of responding to that internal blockage. It's not the kind of itch that moves around. It doesn't jump from spot to spot. It settles in one place and refuses to leave. Ruth's story, a daily itch that changed everything. Ruth was 69. A mother of 4 and a retired florist, she was no stranger to minor discomfort. But one day, she noticed an itch beneath her right breast, just to the side of her rib cage. At first, she thought it was her bra, so she bought a different one, then another. She even stopped wearing one altogether for a few weeks. Nothing helped. She tried lotions, she changed her laundry detergent, still the itch returned. Same place, every day, without fail. Finally, she mentioned it during a routine checkup. Her doctor noticed slight skin dimpling and ordered further tests. What they found shocked everyone. A small, aggressive tumor growing close to the surface, without forming a lump. It had been there for weeks, maybe months. The itch had been its only signal. Ruth was fortunate. Because she spoke up, the cancer was detected early and her treatment began immediately. What about men? It's important to stress this: men can get breast cancer too. It's rare, but it happens, and when it does, it often goes undetected longer than it should. Why? Because men don't think to check. They don't associate an itchy nipple or a sensitive patch beneath the chest with something serious. But cancer doesn't care about assumptions. An itchy patch, a sore spot, or even just a subtle twinge beneath the skin can be the very first sign. And it's not always breast tissue itself. Sometimes nearby lymph nodes, under the arms or below the collarbone, begin to swell due to lymphoma or other cancers. That swelling causes local irritation that shows up as persistent itching. When to pay attention. Here's how to distinguish between a harmless chest itch and one that warrants a closer look. Location specific. The itch keeps returning to the same exact area, breast, nipple, or upper chest. No external cause, no new clothing, detergent, heat rash, or fiction explanation. Texture change. Skin feels thicker, dimpled, or slightly reddish, even if it looks normal at first. Swelling or warmth in the area. Doesn't respond to moisturizers, creams, or changing fabric. If any of these apply, especially in someone over 60, it's time to see a doctor. A mammogram, ultrasound, or even a biopsy could provide clarity and potentially save a life. Why this gets missed. The chest is a sensitive private area. People, especially older women, are often hesitant to talk about discomfort there. They chalk it up to hormonal changes, skin thinning, or even stress. But awareness is powerful. Knowing that persistent itching in this area isn't always innocent gives you or your loved ones a tool to act faster. This is especially true for postmenopausal women who may attribute all breast changes to age, not realizing how often inflammatory cancers target this demographic. What you can do today. If this section resonates with you or someone you know. 1. Do a self-check. Look and feel the skin around the itch. Is there any dimpling, swelling, or color change? 2. Track it. Write down when it happens and for how long. 3. Mention it to your doctor, even if you think it's minor. 4. Request an exam. If you're over 60, insist on a breast and lymph node check, even without a lump. The truth beneath the skin. Sometimes the biggest warning isn't a lump. It's an itch that stays in one place, lingers without relief, and nags you until you listen. And when you finally do, when you take action, speak up, or just ask the right question, you might catch something early enough to fight it on your terms. That's what this is about. Empowerment, not fear. Observation, not panic. And trusting that your body in its quietest ways is always trying to protect you. Some signs of illness are hard to ignore. Chest pain, coughing blood, fainting. But others are easier to brush aside, especially when they affect parts of the body we don't often talk about. Few things feel more awkward than discussing itching in the genital or anal area. We downplay it, we blame it on hygiene, sweat, tight clothes, maybe a bad wipe. We wait it out in silence. But for older adults, particularly those over 60, this kind of chronic, unexplained itching, especially when it doesn't respond to normal treatment, could be the body's earliest attempt to flag something serious. We're talking about rare but often overlooked cancers like anal cancer, vulvar cancer in women, penile cancer in men. They're not common, but they're not as rare as we think, and they're often missed until it's too late because no one wants to talk about an itch in that area. Why this area matters. The skin and tissue in the anal and genital regions are highly sensitive. They're packed with nerve endings, lymph nodes, and mucous membranes. That means they often respond to changes in the body earlier, but also more subtly than other areas. Itching here can be caused by many benign things: dryness, yeast infections, incontinent products, even shaving. But when the itch lasts for weeks, returns consistently, or begins to feel burning, raw, or focused on one small area, it might be more than just a surface level issue. Eugene's story, the hemorrhoid that wasn't. Eugene was 76, a retired mechanic and proud grandfather of 6. He dealt with hemorrhoids on and off over the years, so when he started feeling itchy and sore back there, he thought it was more of the same. He used over-the-counter creams, changed his diet, even tried sitz baths. Nothing worked. The itching became more raw, more persistent, and sometimes he noticed a bit of spotting. His wife finally convinced him to get checked. A specialist performed a scope exam and discovered a small lesion inside the anal canal. The diagnosis? Stage 1 anal cancer. Caught early, treated effectively, but only because he didn't ignore the discomfort forever. For women, postmenopausal doesn't mean post-risk. Older women are often told that vaginal dryness and irritation are just part of menopause. And yes, hormones do play a role, but there's a danger in assuming that all changes are harmless. Vulvar cancer, which affects the outer area of the genitals, becomes more common with age. One of its earliest symptoms? A persistent one-sided itch that doesn't go away. Sometimes the skin looks slightly discolored, thinner, or rougher, but not always. Many women ignore it. Some are embarrassed to ask about it, and sadly, too many cases are caught late. Red flags to look for. When it comes to itching down there, here's how to tell whether it might be more than just irritation. Duration lasts more than 2-3 weeks. No visible rash or infection. One-sided or focused on a specific area. Burning or raw sensation. Doesn't improve with standard creams or hygiene changes. Bleeding, discharge, or skin thickening. Don't let shame or discomfort keep you from speaking up. You have every right to protect your health, no matter where the symptom appears. What to do if you suspect something more. If you or a loved one is dealing with unexplained itching in the anal or genital area, here are the next steps. 1. See a doctor, ideally a dermatologist, gynecologist, or colorectal specialist. 2. Request a physical exam, even if there are no visible marks. 3. Consider a biopsy if the area feels different to the touch or shows changes. 4. Speak up about all symptoms. Even if you feel awkward, you deserve answers, not silence. This isn't about fear, it's about respecting the signals. Too often, we dismiss uncomfortable symptoms as nothing because we don't want to overreact. But here's the truth. If it's bothering you, it's not nothing. If it hasn't gone away, it's worth a second look. And if your gut says it's off, that's a signal, not an overreaction. One doctor I interviewed put it this way. Cancer doesn't always arrive with pain. Sometimes it knocks quietly. And if you ignore that knock too long, you lose your chance to answer. Let's not miss the knock. Final thoughts. The body doesn't yell, it nudges. Now that we've reached the end of this journey, I want you to reflect on something powerful. Your body is not working against you. It's not trying to confuse you. It's trying in every way it can to help you notice what needs attention. Whether it's a deep, stubborn itch on the legs, a phantom tickle on the back, a burning sensation on the scalp, a nagging irritation on the chest or breast, or an awkward but persistent itch in the private areas. These aren't just annoyances, they are messages. And for older adults, especially those over 60, listening to these messages can mean the difference between catching a problem early or not catching it at all. What to do now? If any of the signs we've talked about sound familiar, don't panic, don't dismiss, and most of all, don't wait. Talk to your doctor, ask for exams, trust your intuition, because you know your body better than anyone. Let discomfort spark curiosity, not fear, because early action changes everything. Closing statement for the video. Thank you for watching. If this video gave you even one insight that made you think twice about your health or someone you love, then it's done its job. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with those who might need it. You never know whose life could change from a simple nudge. If this video helped you, imagine how many others it could help too. Subscribe to Real Senior Life for more vital health insights, real stories, and empowering knowledge made just for you. Because growing older should mean growing wiser together. And in the comments below, tell me which of these 5 areas surprised you the most. Your story might just help someone else find their answer.